Watch how David Lammy comes under relentless pressure in the House of Commons as MPs accuse the government of making Britain less safe, with fierce questions on early prisoner releases, prison policy and public safety. Tempers flare in one of the most explosive justice debates in Parliament. Before we continue, hit like and subscribe to Britain Daily for more explosive political coverage. Let's watch this explosive clip.
With permission, Mr. Speaker, I'll answer questions 4 and 15 together. There are fewer than 5 transgender women in the general women's estate. The exact figure cannot be provided without breaching data protection legislation obligations.
Well, I thank the Minister for that answer. In Scotland 2 weeks ago, the Court of Session ruled it unlawful to hold biological males anywhere in women's prisons estate. And even the SNP government, after a year of dither and hundreds of thousands of pounds of public money wasted, has now been forced to accept it and move biological males out of women's prisons. So can the Minister set out a timeline for all women's prisoners right across the UK to remove biological males so they can fully comply with the Supreme Court ruling brought about by For Women's Scotland?
Minister. Well, Mr. Speaker, the judgment in Scotland relates to different prison rules applying in Scotland only. England and Wales have their own separate rules, as he'll no doubt know. I would just gently remind him the rules that we have in England and Wales were introduced in 2023, and they mean that transgender women with male genitalia or any history of violence or sexual offending are not held in the women's estate, except in truly exceptional cases signed off at a ministerial level. Now, under this government, we inherited those rules, and ministers have not approved the placement of any transgender women in women's prisons. This is a classic case, Mr. Speaker, where this iteration of the Conservative Party spent all their time in opposition criticising the very policy that they introduced.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've just heard from my honourable friend that the Supreme Court has clarified the meaning of sex in the Equality Act. And as we've heard, Scotland has taken those steps. Now, the Minister just responded to my colleague with a kind of fairly vague answer about what needs to happen in England. We know that there are women who are not biological females in the estate in the UK, in England and Wales. So when will they get those same protections as are happening in Scotland?
The policy that we are implementing in England and Wales is lawful. It complies with the Prison Rules 1999 as well as the Equality Act 2010. The EHRC guidance has come out. We have 40 days to ratify it and consider it, and we'll do so.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And given that we're thinking about the women's prison estate more generally, and given that the Swansea Residential Women's Centre was due to open in 2024, but doesn't look like it's going to open at all now, what steps is the Minister taking to ensure that Welsh women can access alternatives to custody?
Minister? Well, she's absolutely right that where it's safe to do so, we're determined to drive down the population of women that are in prison. That's why Lord Timpson set up the Women's Justice Board, which has taken huge steps in not just improving resources for those women that are in custody, but ensuring that we have plans to reduce wherever possible.
Dr. Caroline Johnson.
Question number 5, Mr. Speaker.
Just a second.
Well, with permission, Mr. Speaker, I'll answer questions 5 and 14 together. Official statistics for the year to March 2025 show 262 recorded releases in error. The latest figure will be published next month. In April, we also released ad hoc data from April 2025 to March 2026, which was published alongside David Lammy's independent review into releases in error.
Dr. Caroline Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I understand a total of 441, which over a 2-year period is the worst on record and means that in less than 24 months, Labour have released more prisoners in error than in the previous 6 years combined. It's a disgrace. Can I ask the Minister another question? How many of those released in error early were convicted of rape?
Just a second.
Well, can I say to the Honourable Lady, she wasn't listening to the figures that I gave. We are actually seeing a reduction in the numbers because of the review that I asked Dame Linoas to lead. We are implementing those recommendations to see the system coming down. But I've got to tell you, who left us with the mess? Who saw 800 releases under their watch? When did they come to Parliament and update them? When did they set up a review? They did absolutely nothing. We've got a paper-based system. That's why we're introducing digital ID.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The hundreds of prisoners released in error under this government is a disgrace. But more concerning are the thousands it will have been an error to release. He didn't answer the previous question. Let's try another. As we heard in this House yesterday, child groomers and rapists are due to be let out early, years early, with their victims being informed by letter. So will the Minister tell my constituents exactly why, under this government, dangerous criminals will be in their communities rather than in prison?
Because you almost broke the prison system. You built just 500 places in 14 years. And we had to fix that system. You had 17 different forms of guidance on early release in the last year, all done in secret. That's why we introduced the sentencing bill. That's why it got royal assent in January. And that's why we're doing everything we can to build more prison places, 14,000 prison places by 2031.
Can I just gently say to Justice Secretary, when you say I am not holding any responsibility for any of this. Gagan Mahindra.
Question number 3, please, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this government inherited a criminal justice system in crisis with record and rising Crown Court backlogs. We simply cannot accept the intolerable delays currently faced by victims, witnesses and defendants alike. Sir Brian Levison's conclusion was clear and emphatic that it is only with investment, efficiencies and pragmatic structural reform that we can begin to turn the tide on the backlog and deliver swifter justice for victims. Those are the measures being brought forward in the government's Courts and Tribunals Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Minister confirm that the legacy of the Deputy Prime Minister will be as the first Justice Secretary in the United Kingdom to restrict the centuries-old rights to jury trials?
There is no right in this country to a jury trial. What there is a right to is a fair trial. And as part of a fair trial, timeliness is a key ingredient. If you're waiting years for your day in court, that simply is not fair, whether you're a defendant or a witness. Of course, there is precedent for this, including perhaps his hero, the late, great Mrs. Thatcher. And the fact is, we have always made a policy choice about who can access jury trial. We're going to make that policy choice again to deliver swifter justice for victims.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There are people who are concerned that the changes that the government have made will give more power to judges. So can I ask to make decisions on their own? So can I ask the Minister what she's doing to monitor the impact of these changes and ensure there's transparency at all stages? And can I add to the Speaker that we'd obviously like to see Harlow Magistrate as well as Chorley Magistrate Court open?
Well, as always, he is an outstanding advocate for Harlow. Our judges take the judicial oath to act without fear or favour, and it's why our judiciary is the finest in the world. But of course transparency matters. That is why the recording of proceedings, the transcription of proceedings, and indeed the review that we have committed to test the impact of our reforms is so important. I observe directly the training that our judges receive, which is first class.
Shadow Justice Secretary Nick Timothy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Justice Secretary and his ministerial team say that the attack on jury trials is needed to deal with the backlog in the courts. When the Right Honourable Member for Makerfield takes over and scraps the policy on jury trials, does the Minister predict court backlogs will get worse?
Minister.
He mischaracterises, as so many do, the government's policy. We are preserving jury trials as a cornerstone of British justice. But it is no justice at all if you are waiting years for that jury trial. When witnesses pull out the process, when complainants pull out the process, and those trials collapse, that is no justice at all. Whoever is in charge, and the dereliction of duty by those opposite, which allowed the Crown Court backlog to run out of control, the so-called party of law and order, they buried their heads in the sand. We will not do so. We will take on the recommendations of Sir Brian Levison, and we will make the difficult choices to bring down our backlog and deliver justice for the British people.
Nick Timothy.
Mr. Speaker, I listened very carefully, and I don't think she answered my question. We will see, won't we? I'm replying to the Justice Secretary from his sedentary position. I think the Minister's just made it very difficult for herself to stay in the Ministry of Justice when the Right Honourable Member for Makerfield takes over. They are continuing to say that the attack on jury trials is vital and there's no alternative. But we know that's not what the next leader of the Labour Party thinks. He's made clear he's going to scrap the policy. So will the Minister spell out what this means? She's saying that the Right Honourable Member for Makerfield is wrong, isn't she?
Minister.
I think he's referring to an interview with the Right Honourable Member for Makerfield, which took place in December, well before this House voted conclusively in second reading. Any government and any ministerial team would have to take on this challenge. Unlike the party opposite, we will not duck it. What the Right Honourable Member for Makerfield actually said is we need to pause and reflect. The evidence base is clear. Sir Brian Leveson offered a blueprint. We cannot bring down the backlog without structural reform. He says we can. Frankly, as so often on the other side, they ignore the experts, they ignore the evidence, they crash the justice system, and you know who suffers? It's the British citizen. We won't allow it.
What an intense and highly charged debate inside the House of Commons. David Lammy found himself under sustained pressure as MPs challenged the government on justice, prison policy and public safety. Questions ranged from the handling of prison capacity to the early release of offenders and the management of the prison estate, turning justice questions into one of the most confrontational exchanges of the day. Opposition MPs argued that public confidence in the justice system depends on dangerous offenders serving appropriate sentences and on prisons being managed in a way that protects victims and the Ministers rejected those accusations, arguing they inherited a system under enormous pressure and were taking difficult decisions to restore stability. They pointed to plans for additional prison places, reforms to reduce court backlogs, and changes they say will deliver justice more efficiently while maintaining public safety. For many people watching at home, these debates are about more than party politics. They raise fundamental questions about fairness, accountability, and whether the justice system can protect communities while giving victims confidence that justice is being served. Today's Commons clash showed just how divided Parliament remains over the best way to achieve those goals. With leadership changes, justice reforms, and public confidence all under the spotlight, these arguments are unlikely to disappear anytime soon. What do you think? Are the government's reforms the right response to the pressures facing the justice system, or should a different approach be taken? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this coverage, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Britain Daily, and turn on notifications for more explosive Commons debates, PMQs clashes, and breaking political news from Westminster.